Welcome to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
Welcome. Oh, today's story is one that I've been so excited to talk about. This is a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure, and there is no doubt this is one of those examples. So our guest today is Karl Miller. Karl is a realtor, a small business owner, and a family man, and he is one of the most ambitious people that I know. Every time I talk to Karl, it seems like he's got something new and something big going on. He has most definitely earned his success through hard work and an incredible abundance mindset. A couple of years ago, Karl reaped the rewards from years of planning by taking 2.5 months off from his work and his business to travel around the United States by RV with his family. And today we're going to hear about that adventure. Karl, welcome to the campfire.
Hey, Scott, thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, man, I am so excited to hear more about the trip and the adventure and honestly, all the planning that went into it. Hey, if we just can give a little bit of context for the people listening, can you just tell us a little bit about you and your business and your family and what day-to-day life looks like for Karl Miller?
Oh, sure. So yeah, as you mentioned, I am a real estate professional. I've actually got a small independent brokerage in Lynchburg, Virginia. We have 10 agents in our office. We're an independent brokerage, and we got 4 staff members. And honestly, my staff make me look really good. They're the heroes in my story. That's for sure. I've got good people on our team in our little office here. But yeah, I'm married. I've got a wife. We'll actually in October of 2021, it'll be 20 years.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next week, actually, as we're recording this right now. So we'll celebrate with a little trip down to Aruba. So that'll be fun. And I've got two teenagers. I've got a 16-year-old son and a 14-year-old daughter. And, we're helping people get with their housing dreams every week in the office and then having fun as much as we can, outside of that with their family.
Yeah, man. So 2 teenagers, family, and a very, very busy lifestyle. Like, how in the world do you take 2.5 months off from what you have going on to do something like this?
Yeah, it all kind of started with a little bit of a dream, and I have to go back. So I'm gonna take it back to 2009, and I'm gonna go even back further than that. I grew up on a dairy farm in Campbell County, and so if any of you listeners know anything about farming and agriculture, especially dairy farming, like there's no breaks. Those cows need to be milked twice a day, no matter if you feel like it or not, or if it's a Sunday or if it's a holiday, it doesn't matter. And so kind of grew up in that mindset of you just did what you had to do, and I'm the oldest of 5 children. So a lot of the brunt of farm work kind of came on my shoulders. But my dad talked about that someday, it's always a someday, I'm going to take a trip out west and we're going to go as a family and go out west. Well, being a dairy farmer and not really having outside help, it was just the family. That trip never happened. And I remember talking to my wife after I got married. It's like, my dad always talked about this. I really want to do it with our kids, just create this experience, and these memories. And fortunately, both my wife and myself, we'd like to travel. We sort of have a little bit of an adventurous side and go experience new things. And so when our kids were 2 and 4, we talked about, if we're going to do this, we should just, set a family goal, make this happen. So that was in 2009. And we just set a goal. Hey, in 2019, why don't we just take off for the summer and just, our kids will be 12 and 14, 13 and 11, and they'll be old enough to remember it and maybe still young enough to not think that mom or dad are, too uncool to hang out with. And so we just kind of set that as a goal in 2009.
Man, this was a 10-year goal.
Yeah. And obviously it becomes a bit of a cost factor. And just so you know, in 2009, I was fairly new in the real estate business, and we were somewhat living commission check to commission check. Mm-hmm. And it just started out. It's like, well, if we just start somewhere, let's just throw $1 a day into a jar. Let's just put $7 a week into a cash jar.
Wow.
Just saving for this trip. And So literally, that's kind of where it started. Every week I would just literally, wad up $7 and toss it in this little clay jar that we had in our bedroom, and eventually some weeks I'd throw a 10 in there, and some weeks I'd throw a 20 in there. I think about 2 years later, we kind of got rid of the cash, and I just made it an automatic withdrawal out of our savings account. It was $20 a week, just automatically came out from our checking into a dedicated savings account for this trip.
Yeah. Karl, it's amazing because I think most people would just be like, what's $1 a day going to do? But man, I mean, 10 years ago, you started putting $1 a day into a jar, and 2009, you guys actually took this trip.
Yeah, 2019. Yeah,
2019.
So 10
yeah.
years later. 10 years later. And it was probably about 2016 or so. I kind of knew we had I don't know how much we had in there. Maybe about, I'm trying to remember how much we had. It was up there. It was into the low 20s by then, $20,000 saved up. But I told Alice, I want to go on this trip, and I want to not stress about money. I want to know that the household expenses will be paid for 2.5 months. I want to know that the office staff will be paid for. If the office doesn't sell a single house while I'm gone, my employees will be paid, and I don't have to stress one bit about money. And then I also decided, kind of had in the back of my mind, let's buy an RV and then just resell it, at the end of the trip. So I got a little bit more serious about saving. So I would literally take every single commission check, and I would just put some money from that check into a dedicated savings account. And I got real serious for the last 3 years, just really ramping those dollars up. And, if you have a goal and you're shooting for something and you're focused on that goal, and it's something that you're thinking about every day, it's in front of you, it's a goal that's in writing and it's in front of you. We had pictures of just different cool stuff that was in front of me. There wasn't a week went by in 17, 18, 19, I don't think that, or 16, 17, 18, that I didn't think about, the summer of 2019, how we're going to take off. And, if you got a goal in mind and you're really shooting for it, like, you kind of find ways. In the real estate business, we also have the opportunity sometimes to send referrals. Like, Scott, you can have a buyer in Charlotte that you're sending to Lynchburg, and you can contact me with their name and number, and I'll close that deal out, and I'll send you a little thank you referral check. Well, I started collecting all the referral checks and just putting them in that fund as well. So I didn't cash those out and for personal use or business use. I just put them into that savings account. Yeah. So by the time we left, I had over $100,000 in that account, and we had already bought the RV. So, so the goal was just to go, and it was so freeing because financially I didn't have to stress about money. We got to Arizona, and I was like, let's do a helicopter tour of the Grand Canyon, and it wasn't even a second thought. Now that's an expensive endeavor, but we just threw the money down and went. It was so much fun.
I'm getting chills listening to you, honestly. I mean, you're talking about starting with a goal of putting $1 a day into a jar, and 10 years later, you got $100,000 saved up, and you've purchased an RV to go on this unbelievable trip. Like, this is just the power of setting a goal and getting after it just bit by bit, isn't it?
Yeah, and don't forget time, right? So financial goals, I mean, it's pretty amazing if you're really dedicated and focused on a financial goal and you just are consistent with it, just how that could compound over time. And like I said, you kind of find ways, right? So when you're focused on that one thing, like, a $2,000 check comes in from a referral fee, it'd been pretty easy to spend that or throw it into some sort of business expenditure. But instead of that, I mean, I would just pay the taxes on it and throw it into, I would save enough to pay the taxes on that income, but then I would just throw the whole balance in the savings account. And, if needed, I would pull a portion out for taxes. But I honestly didn't pull anything out the whole time. We did not touch it. And so I just absorbed the taxes and just kept saving that money.
It's amazing. You were committed to that goal. And you said in the compounding effect as well. And, actually, I mean, stock market did pretty darn well from 2009 until 2019, didn't it?
It did. But honestly, I just kept in a liquid account. I was earning maybe, a point, half a point of interest, so.
Man, it's really amazing. All right. So I want to come back to this. I definitely want to come back to the RV.
Okay.
But can we talk a little bit about the trip itself? Can you give us kind of an overview of the trip?
Sure. Yeah. So we left. We literally left the day after the kids got out of school. They checked out of school May 30th that year. We jumped in the car 31st, I guess. We jumped in on June 1st. We left the morning of June 1st. We stopped by my sister and I had a nephew that graduated high school. Spent the night in Pennsylvania. Spent the night with them. We had a little misadventure let me give you an overview of the trip, and then I'll
Yeah,
get
yeah.
into this adventure. So from there, we went and visited my wife's family in Iowa. My wife's from Iowa. We spent about 4 or 5 days with her family. Stopped in and visited her grandmother, who was not doing very well in northern Iowa, and glad we did because she passed away later on that trip when we
Wow.
were in California, and my wife actually flew back to go to that funeral while we were parked in I'm sorry, I say California, Colorado,
Yeah.
and it worked out perfectly. It was good timing. My kids were scheduled to be in a camp that week that my wife and I had met with, so we'd planned. My wife and I were planning on doing some side trips, and the kids were going to be at camp in Colorado. Long story short, she flew back for that funeral, so I'm really happy we got to see great grandma Youngerman one last time
Yeah.
before she
Yeah.
passed away. From there, we went to South Dakota, spent some time in the Badlands. From there, we went up to Montana, spent some time in. I'm skipping something. We went to we saw the Black Hills in North Dakota or South Dakota, I should say, and what's the
Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore, man. I'm
Yeah.
drawing a blank. Devil's Tower. We stopped in there. Went to Glacier National Park, and we spent some time there. Spent some time in Yellowstone, and then we visited some friends in Utah and Oregon, and spent some time there for a few days. Oregon was a lot of fun. That's in northern Utah and Oregon, near in that area. Antelope, Oregon. There's a whole documentary about that. But the camp that what's it called? Not the Wild West, but the Wild West, I believe it's called. It was this anyway. There's this compound out there. We spent some time with friends who now work at that camp where this crazy movie was made. From there, we went out to Washington and we spent time in Olympic National Park. We followed the Route 1 coast down all the way down into California. Spent some time coming down through there, and then we were in Yosemite for a week.
Wow.
From there, we had to the Sequoia National Park and Kings Island, Kings Canyon, and then from there to Grand Canyon, and then to Antelope. Not Antelope. I'm sorry. Oh man, I'm drawing blanks. I should have pulled my map out. Itinerary. From there, we went north into Page, and where the damn Lake Powell is, and then Utah, Moab, Utah. We went back to Utah, Moab. Spent time there, and then ended up in Colorado for about 10 days. Ended up at Rocky Mountain National Park. And so that's kind of an overview. From there, we deadheaded back to Iowa, and then from Iowa back to Virginia.
That's amazing. So, and I do have to throw in there that this was complete happenstance, but my family and I happened to be at Glacier National Park as you were rolling through.
Yep.
And we had an opportunity to hook up with you, and that was pretty darn cool.
That was awesome. We actually heard you were coming, and we spent the next. We were planning on leaving the day you arrived, but we extended our trip. And this is a funny story. So my son and I, we'd spent the day up at Lake McDowell in Glacier, and while we were out there, we did the little boat ride tour out there on that lake, beautiful lake, and anyway. So while we were there, I'm looking up, and I asked the guy, like, "What mountain is that?" There's a tower up there. He's like, "Yeah, that's Brown Mountain." So Josh and I, who was my son, by the way, was 13. So Josh and I decided to go climb Brown Mountain, which is about 8,500 foot mountain, but it's straight up. It's like a 5-mile trip. So we go up there, and so we leave at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and my wife is going to extend our stay one day. Well, the campground host was not happy about this extension, and she got so mad at my wife. Next thing I know, I'm up on top of Brown Mountain. We're actually coming down, and it's cool. We're seeing sheep. We're hanging out at the tower. It's snowing up. It's snow up there. It's cold, blowing like crazy. Josh and I are hiking down as fast as we can, just trying to get warmed up. We were freezing. I mean, we had like 3 or 4 layers on. It was just cold. And I get this call from my wife. She's in tears, and she's like, "I can't believe we got this. I can't figure out host is chewing me out. I got to move the RV, and I can't do it." I told her I can't do it. And this host was being incredibly rude and demanding of my poor wife, and she didn't move the RV. It was kind of a hassle to, 40-foot RV. It was a big RV. But anyway, funny little story. So I had to come down and sort of calm the campground host down and my wife down. In the meantime, they worked out some other solution, but somebody was trying to come into our spot, and it was kind of a mess. The only rude campground host that goes on
an RV trip.
Yeah, that was actually the only rude host we had the whole trip. I mean, she was not very happy.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Well, glad you got through that one. You kind of walked through that itinerary, and I'm hearing a lot of national parks, a lot of beautiful spots. I'm not hearing a whole lot of cities.
No.
This was a nature trip, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was all national park. We went to 13 different national parks, and one of the best things we did is we purchased the annual park pass. And so you go to Devil's Tower, you go to Yosemite, you go to Yellowstone. You just flash the little pass, and it was I think, was it $40 maybe, or maybe, yeah, it wasn't that much. Maybe it was $80.
Yeah.
It gets you into all the national parks. It's good for a year. That was like the best investment because
It's a
otherwise you're
great
paying.
deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to go to multiple national parks. So, Carl, I got to ask you, I mean, boy, 2009, you start putting money away. I
Yeah.
mean, this is a big goal. You're saving a bunch of money. Um, there obviously was passion behind this trip. What called you to, I mean, you could have spent that money on a lot of things, right? I
Right.
mean, what called you out to the woods? What called you to take this RV trip?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, like I said, I'm a little bit of an adventurer, and my wife kind of is too. Actually, we met at a camp in Colorado. We met at Eagle Lake Camp with the Navigators Ministries in Colorado. My wife and I did, and I was working as a counselor living in tents, and my wife was the camp nurse. So we both kind of have a bend for outdoor adventures and camping and hiking and all of that. We did a lot of backpacking back in the day before we had kids, and so I think that one of the things that when you get out in nature and you kind of get away from the busyness, if you will, of life, and you get in with just hearing the night sounds and the sounds of nature. And again, we're in an RV, so it's kind of glamping in a way, but
Glamping, love it.
there's just something really cool about kind of getting away from a busy schedule and just being able to chill and relax. And I think for us, we wanted to give our kids that experience and just give our kids the just an opportunity to spend time together as a family, and just to hang out. And one of the things we did is we tried to always relax where we went. So I rattled off a lot of national parks in that itinerary, but we always spent at least 2 nights every place we stopped, with the exception of a few places when
Yep.
we were deadheading, like for example, when we were deadheading from Oregon down to California to Yosemite. We only had 1 night, at a couple of those spots, but we always spent 2 nights minimum usually. There was a few exceptions, but that way you could just set up and relax and just chill out. And if you're tired from traveling, you just chill out the next day. It's really easy and fun, and go for a little hike. And
Yeah, Carl, you're like I said in the beginning, but you're one of the most ambitious people that I know. Like, how does Karl Miller relax?
So my wife, I learned that from my wife, actually. This is also pretty funny. Like when we went, we stayed stateside for our honeymoon. We went to Charleston, South Carolina, and so I'm thinking, okay, every day we've got all this stuff I want to do. My wife's like, I just want to sit on the beach and read a book. And that was the first time, like, oh, not everybody wants to go do 1,000 things every day when you're on vacation. And I've had to learn that. My wife has really taught me how to slow down and relax and just sort of sit and enjoy. Her favorite place to go for a wet week is just go down to the Outer Banks in North Carolina and literally
awesome.
sit on the beach. There's not a whole lot of distractions, and just read a book on the beach and listen to the waves.
Yeah.
So I've learned how to slow down a little bit and just relax and calm down and pick up a book and do nothing while I'm on vacation.
Yeah.
And I got that from her.
I'm a fellow realtor, of course, as you know. That's how we've gotten to know each other. But like, why is it so hard for us to relax, Carl?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we like to feel like we're important after you stay plugged in and you're glued to your phone. But that's the other thing I did. I did not take my phone with me. I left my phone with my office staff. So I was just I was just really determined not to take work with me. So I left my cell phone. And now I got a little burner phone. I had a SIM card I swapped out with just a little crappy temp phone. And actually, I left that phone, which was my phone number, with Nicole, my office staff. And the trip, I would check in on Tuesday mornings at 10 o'clock Eastern. I would check in every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And sometimes it was a quick 10-minute call. And I never got involved with any of my clients. It was just more, hey, what are your challenges? What's going well? How can I help you? That was really the only thing I wanted to answer. And I was not going to get in the weeds with any specific situation, but just how can I help advise my staff and empower them to do the job? And so, so I had my phone. So I had, Spotify and Waze and all my podcasts and everything that I listened to. But the phone, any text or call was going into Nicole. And
that's huge for a real estate broker to turn their phone off for 2.5 months.
Yeah.
And that's, I know this, right? That this is not something that you just do, right? There's a lot of planning that goes into this. So I want to go back, like, in this kind of decision-making process, you're putting $1 a day into the jar, you're putting your commission checks into the jar. Like, at what point did it become real for you? Like, I mean, when you were putting those dollars in the jar, like, were you sure this was going to happen, or was this just like, talk to me about that?
Yeah. So I think probably the first time it became really real was in February of 2018, when we bought the RV, and I bought it at an auction. It was my brother works for an auction company, and it was a little bit of a fixer. It was a 2004 Monaco Diplomat, had like, I can't remember, 30,000 miles on it, but it needed a lot of love. It was a big old Cummins diesel, it was a 40-footer, big old diesel pusher. I was going to get one that big, but I was like, man, these things are pretty decent. So I bought this RV and I paid like $32,000 after commissions on it, and but it needed work. The floor had kind of been, there was a leak that had happened in the kitchen, so we had to replace all the floor, had to replace some kitchen pieces, and then you start uncovering more and more problems. And we took it on a couple of trips just to get it tested out, broke it in. Every time we go on trip, something else would come up, and it was just constantly little improvements. I ended up taking it down to Florida in the winter of 2018 because the slide outs needed some reinforcement work done. Got all that done. I ended up putting about $23,000 into it before we even left for the trip. So
I'm asking a realtor, is fixing up an RV kind of like fixing up a house?
Probably worse, because I mean, with the house, at least I know what I'm getting into, or at least I think I do. This one here, like, there's so many components and electronics, and I mean, everything from the generator not starting, and it was a wiring issue, to the refrigerator door falling off. Literally, as we're driving down the road, the floor. I mean, my daughter opens up the fridge, make a sandwich, and the door just falls off, and so I mean, I'm figuring out how to MacGyver things together. I mean, that you look at the little parts, and we literally go to Ace Hardware, and I'm pulling out something similar with screws. I'm drilling new holes and retrofitting this thing to piece it together. So the jack motor went out on one of the downrigger jacks when we were in Montana, I believe, and I just happened to go to a car dealership and I brought the little solenoid in. It was a solenoid that was, the whole thing was just smoking out. And he's like, man, that's a Ford. That's 1980. Like, this guy knew 1982 Ford, and he goes back and gets the solenoid, and I wired it back in, and next thing you know, our jacks are working again. So there was just a lot of, YouTube becomes your friend when you have a big RV. Let me tell you, YouTube, and then also the Facebook page of Monaco owners bailed me out more than I can say. Like, I would just post a question and they would be like, yeah, here's what you do. So really good group of community with specific RV models. So if you get an RV, join the Facebook group, because they will become your best friend.
Karl, I said you're ambitious. I said you have an abundance mindset. I forgot about resourceful. I mean, MacGyver, man. Like, and I suspect that for you, that was part of the adventure. Like, rebuilding this RV was fun and was part of the adventure. Did you have any experience before you bought the RV?
No, not really. I mean, obviously, when you grow up on a farm, you kind of are resourceful, So a lot of this stuff I kind of learned from my dad, and I am not mechanically minded at all. I don't mind getting my hands dirty, but no, a lot of it, if I kind of have it laid out in front of me, I can figure it out. But it's not something that I enjoy naturally. But when you're out on the road and this is your only option, you figure it out, You
just figure it out.
Yeah. Had a toolbox, bought a drill, you do all that stuff. Had a cordless.
So I got to point out, you were putting money into a jar from 2009. You said it became real when you bought the RV.
Yeah, so 2018, February of 18. Yeah, February of 18.
So essentially for 9 years, you were putting money away, and like, this thing wasn't really real yet. You were just putting money away. Like, to me, that's amazing.
Yeah, maybe 16 or 17 when I kind of started to calculate, look, if we're going to pull this off and I really don't want to have any stress about money, then I need to have, substantial amount of savings.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I started just to throw, several $100s with every commission check just to build that fund up a little faster. And like I said, I was getting more serious about referral checks. So anytime I had a little extra, I would just throw it in that thing. So I think maybe about 17 is when I was like, okay, this is really happening in 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the amount of time that you were just sort of trusting that this thing was like, something was going to happen. Maybe you didn't know exactly how it was going to unfold, but you were just kind of going along with it. And it wasn't, 8-9 years before it became real for you. So once you made up your mind, once you bought that RV, you knew you were going, you had like basically a year to prepare your team, prepare your business. Like, what all had to happen from that point? Once you made up your mind, like, what did you have to do to make sure that you could go away for 2.5 months?
Yeah. So when 2019 kind of rolled around January, my staff and I, we got pretty serious about just making sure we had systems and processes. I wanted to empower them. About April, I started to let all of my clients know that I was going to be out June 1st, but they were in good hands. And I worked really hard to just generate a lot of leads. You know how it is in the real estate business. You're sort of, the leads you generate today kind of translate into closed deals. And 2 to 6 months down the road. And so I had a lot of deals in the pipeline, but they weren't ready to list until June or July. And Nicole
Yeah.
did a great job of taking all of those clients and converting them into actual listings. And I think they sold a number of properties. They did sell a number of properties while I was gone. And fortunately, the business was able to cash flow while I was out.
That's amazing. So you were gone and your team kept things running.
Yep, that's correct. Yes, sir.
Yeah. That's really amazing. So, and so congrats to you for that. Congrats to them for that. You obviously did a great job of leading them and empowering them and giving them the confidence to be able to keep the ship running. And that's not a small feat. I want to know, did you experience any fears or doubts? Like, was there any resistance? Was there ever a point where you kind of like, thinking to yourself, like, this isn't going to happen. This is a bad idea.
Yeah, I don't think up to the event, because we were kind of all on board. I think probably when you do something like that and you're that close with your family and those close quarters for that much time, probably there was a few moments along the way where that kind of came up. Like, I mean, for me, it was just incredibly liberating. I just enjoyed being out of the office and not having to be, tethered to my cell phone.
Yeah.
So probably you asked about when it became really real. I would say on the trip itself, it was probably after we left the Badlands. We were literally just driving across the open freeway in Montana. And I'm like, it was just a beautiful, crystal clear day and blue skies and the white clouds in the distance. And I'm like, man, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm driving a big old RV down the road and just, experiencing freedom. I was like, I told them, I can't believe we're doing this. I just can't believe we're doing this. And it was just the greatest feeling. Like, it was just so fun to be out there in God's green creation and the blue sky and no humidity and for me, just no stress really. I mean, it was just me and the family and just the RV and the miles. And it was a lot of fun.
No stress.
Yep.
And you talked about being in Montana and just this feeling, you talked about freedom.
Yeah.
And that feeling that comes with that. The other thing I've asked a few other folks that have come onto the podcast is, we throw around the word awesome all the time, but the root of that word is awe, right?
Yeah.
And when you're out in nature, you just talked about it in Montana when you're driving along.
Yeah.
Awe is, Google has its own dictionary, Oxford Languages, right? And Google defines awe as a feeling of reverential respect mixed with fear or wonder.
Yeah.
And I love that definition. And I'm curious, like, did you have some awe experiences while you were out there?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, like this country is so, and I'm on the East Coast, obviously.
Yeah.
And I've been to Colorado, but I had not been west of Colorado besides flying, to the West Coast and being in different cities. But yeah, no, it's just amazing to see, just all these amazing mountains, all these beautiful just architecture of the landscape and just the mountains. And I mean, it's just all inspiring. You feel really small when you're in the Rocky Mountains and you're looking up at a 10 or 12,000 foot mountain. I mean, it's just a bigger scale. And because the trees don't obscure the view like they do on the East Coast, you could feel pretty small in a hurry. But back to the doubt side of things, it was kind of funny. When we were on the trip, it was probably about 30 days in the trip. I think the kids would have had a little bit of a, just back and forth with each other. It's funny. They each had their own sofa. They're 6 feet apart, but they still found ways just to needle each other. So my kids, still aggravate each other. They're friends, but they aggravate each other. It just was stressing my wife out. For me, I'm just easy to drive down the road, no problem. But she's like, I just can't wait to get back home. I'm like, we're 30 days in. We still have 5 or 6 weeks ahead of us. You want to go home? She's like, yeah, I'm ready to be in a house that doesn't move. And so it was kind of funny. We had this little, like, really? You want to be home? Like, I could be out here for a year.
This is sounding like a Griswold moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a little Griswold moment there. So, but so I kind of had to juggle and just balance, making sure that my wife's needs were met, and sometimes that meant that we got to a campsite and I wanted to go do something, and she just wanted to hang out under the canopy of the RV with a book in hand. No agenda. And we figured that out. It was great because I would just take Josh, my son, and we would go do something. And she was very content. And it was okay that we split up for the day or just did different things like that. One of our favorite days when we got to Grand Canyon, because there was a bus trolley, and my kids are old enough to kind of go off on their own. So it was funny. All 4 of us went different directions that day. And we kind of convened back again that evening, and we all shared our experiences. And it was just a great day. And it was just kind of fun because we kind of gave each other space.
Absolutely.
And,
that's the word I was was thinking
Yeah,
space.
and it was actually really good. So we
Yeah.
found ways to adapt, because you do get kind of annoyed. You get annoyed with your family members when you're that close for that
No
extended period
doubt.
of time.
It's close quarters, and it makes
Yep.
sense that you guys would take some time to just have your own space for a day. Actually sounds pretty nice.
Yeah.
There's probably some awe experience in that.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. So yeah.
So, Karl, now that you're back,
Sure.
I guess I'm curious, like on two fronts. How did the trip change you, like immediately? And
Mhm.
then, you've had some time to reflect on it. It's been a
Yeah.
couple of years
In
now.
2 years
Like,
now.
what's been the long term impact of having accomplished setting this goal, accomplishing this goal, and taking the goal,
Yeah,
and
boy, I
taking
think,
the trip?
yeah, great. I think for myself, just sort of being able to set your mind to something and accomplishing it. And then the other thing I learned is that there's aspects of my business that I don't have to micromanage or have my fingers involved in everything. Like I think it taught me how to delegate better to my staff. Like, Carl doesn't have to be the guy answering the phone or
Yes.
dealing with every little minutia of a transaction. Like I've got good people that I can delegate that to. And then just setting, just like I set the expectations with my clients before I left, look, I'm not going to be available. I don't have a phone.
Yeah.
Here's Nicole, here's Aaron. They will take good care of you. So just that aspect of you can set that same expectation when you're in town. Look, you know what? Erin's going to take care of this for you. She's going to be better at it than I am.
Yeah.
And I talked about my staff making me look good, but part of that is me letting them, do their job and fulfill their role. So I think just learning how to delegate and how to let go of some things was something I could take. I don't have to be out of town for that to happen in my business. That was one lesson. I think the other thing too is, I'm a better person if I take some time off. And I think since that time, I try to take a little bit of time off, if not, at least for a day or two every other month, try to take a little trip somewhere. For me, if I just get away, get out of town, just get away, I can kind of clear my mind and I come back focused and I come back much better versus just staying in the minutia of work every single, week in, week out. So I try to take 4 to 5 days every 3 months at least. And COVID, of course, has just screwed everything up a little bit.
Right.
I'm really looking forward to going to Aruba next week and
Wow,
just spending
nice.
5 days. Again, my wife and I's 20th anniversary, and just spending 5 days away. Kind of like I'm gonna leave my phone with my assistant again on that trip. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Man, it's incredible. These are great life lessons. So, for people that are listening,
Yeah.
you had this mindset, like you started planning 10 years ago, right? Like this is a big deal. I mean, ultimately you said you ended up saving $100,000,
Mm-hmm.
and that was, you still had the RV that you bought. You had to put some money into that. Like, I'm sure people are listening thinking like, wow, like that's a lot of money. I could never do
Yeah.
that. Like, so first question is, was it worth it?
Oh, absolutely. So one of the things that happened when I came back, and again, this is all pre-COVID, and I bought this RV and I put a little bit more into it than I thought. Like I said, we probably had about $57,000 into it, and on paper it was worth about $60,000. So we get back in Labor Day of 2019, and I popped this thing up on the market in September. We got it cleaned. I had to do a few little repairs, pop it up on the market. Well, in the meantime, the RV market for the used RVs just kind of dropped. There was tons of them, and I ended up selling it for about $50,000, and I was kind of bummed, like I lost $10,000 in this RV. But my friend reached out to me and said, Karl, you didn't lose any money. It's like you could sell that RV for $0 and it would still be worth it.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? That is great perspective, because the reality is that experience that we did with our family, it wasn't about the money necessarily. It's about the experience. I think my mind and my capacity increased tremendously just by being away. And I came back more fired up than ever to be in my business, to make it better. I mean, you identify pain points when you go through a transition like that. You kind of identify what the challenges in your business are. And also, you see opportunities when you're out there traveling around, you're talking to different people, you're experiencing different things in different cultures, in different parts of the country. And you see, as an entrepreneur, you kind of see opportunities. And so, yeah, I think my mind expanded. It certainly was really good just to unplug. And I just really enjoyed that experience tremendously.
I couldn't agree more about just that mind expansion, the awareness that you gain when you travel. It's, just to experience different places, different cultures. It's awesome. So, all right. So let's say that somebody wants to go on an epic trip, but they didn't start saving 10 years ago.
Yeah.
What's your advice? What's your advice for people listening that, that maybe have some reasons why they think they can't do something like this?
You know what? You'll find a way. I mean, that's just it. If you set a goal, you'll find a way. And I read a lot of books. I read a lot of adventure books, and I'm amazed at these guys and gals in their 20s and early 30s who have no job and are just broke, and they figure it out. Like they might be hitchhiking, and they might be kind of winging it on the kindness of strangers. But I tell you what, your mind, you'll find a way. And I think if you set a goal and you put it in front of you, you make it happen. It's almost like the universe will conspire to just sort of make it happen. And you mentioned $100,000, and that sounds really crazy because I'm self-employed, but for somebody who's on a salary of $40,000, like that seems crazy. But again, I mean, we had the goal. We started with $7 a week, and then it turned into $20 a week, and after that number kind of went up. But the reality is because the goal was there and I had time, like it's almost like the resources kind of happened because I was so focused on it. And then when the opportunities came, you tend to find what you're looking for. And so when a $2,000 bonus check came up, well, great, let's put that towards the trip. I mean, again, it'd been easy to spend that somewhere else, but let's put that towards the trip. And so I guess I would just say, set the goal, put a date on it, and you know what? You'll find a way. It'll happen.
You will find a way. I love it. I mean, the focus is incredible, but it's great advice. And I mean, it couldn't be more true.
Yep.
So, all right, a couple of quick questions, and then we're going to wrap things up here, Karl. You got an incredible story, and Hollywood's going to make a movie about you, and I want to know who they're going to cast to play you in the movie about you.
So you tipped me off to this question, and I'm drawing a blank. I had no idea. So I pulled in my staff. And so Yancey, my marketing director, she was quick on the draw. She's like, Chris Evans, who played Captain America.
Evans, yeah.
Chris Evans going to be
Captain America, man.
Yeah, he's going to be your actor.
Oh, I love it.
I was flattered, why not?
Oh, that's fantastic. Hey, I mean, traveling around the United States, you might as well be Captain America. I love it. Save some lives while you're out there. Karl, what's your movie going to be called?
I struggle with this one as well, and I don't really have an answer, but maybe I'll just go back to what I just said. You'll find a way.
You will find a way. Oh, I'm going to watch that movie for sure. Yeah. So, Karl, you have an amazing real estate team in Lynchburg, Virginia. If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, you can just Google Karl Miller Realty. It's Karl with a K, Karl Miller Realty. You'll find our website. Our contact information is on there. You can hit us up at our office anytime. Call us or email us, and we'll take good care of you. We're also on social media. We have a Facebook and Instagram page, Karl Miller Realty.
Thank you, Karl. This was super fun. You have inspired me. I'm sure you've inspired listeners, setting big goals and just getting laser focused and then, living your dream. It's incredible. I hope that you've been inspired today as much as I have. I hope that Karl's story has encouraged you to listen to that voice inside that calls you to adventure, because we want to hear your story next. If you have a story to tell or you need a nudge to go create one, please send us an email. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thank you for listening. Karl, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity, Scott.